Jeff, to many people, the problems of mould is a blight on their lives here in Thurrock. Thurrock Council have said that they are using ventilation units, which they're saying is transforming the lives of their tenants. That's a big boast, isn't it? Is that true?
Well, transforming anything from fitting a fan seems a big statement to me. A heat recovery ventilator does a very good job in controlling moisture. I don't think it was invented or designed to transform lives. The heat recovery unit's basic operation is to reduce moisture in the air in the area that it's working in, so it won't affect the whole of the house unless the heat recovery units have been installed to cover the whole of the house. So that means every room that's got a moisture problem should have a heat recovery vent unit in it, or a spur from a major unit. The issue is, to me, or to my mind, why do these buildings need heat recovery units, which are purely air exchanges to remove moisture from the air? They won't remove mould spores from the air, they won't remove the toxins or the allergens from the air, although they may tiny amounts. We're talking about their actual role is to remove some moisture from the air. Where's this moisture originating from? Is it rising damp? Is it poor ventilation because there's no vents in the window? You know, I'm not against heat recovery ventilators, but they are not the single remedy that's going to transform the health of people living in buildings.
So what is the remedy that will transform people's lives?
Well, I'm not sure that anything's going to transform people's lives, but what if people are suffering from the inhalation or the exposure of toxins? And let's not be fooled here. This is water damage toxins or biological amplification. The World Health Organization have made it very clear. It's not just mold. It can be bacteria. It can be volatile organic compounds that are off-gassing from wet materials. So there's other issues too, and we need to look at all of them. Controlling moisture in a property is only part of the solution. We ought to be looking at the properties and why there's a problem in those properties. There wasn't a problem, and there wasn't a need or requirement for a heat recovery ventilator 10 years ago. Things have changed, and one of the changes may be a reduced ventilation and increased insulation. That may be one reason, but at the moment there seems to be let's get a heat recovery ventilator and that's going to cure everything. It's not.
But it does, to the untrained journalist or citizen, it all sounds like it's an expensive process. Is that one of the problems that people are thinking? I mean, to cure a whole house of mould, is there a ballpark figure?
Well, we're starting to look at, there's a risk benefit assessment on what does it cost. If I said it costs 1 penny to remediate a home where people have got respiratory problems, everybody's on an asthma pump, everybody would say spend the penny. If I said that penny wasn't a penny, it was £1,000 or £5,000 or £10,000, there's a point when people say it's not worth it. Now, I don't know what that point is, but what I do know is that the bill to the National Health Service and the bill to the health service and the health professions across Europe is estimated at over £1 billion a year by the World Health Organization. So when we start looking at there's a problem here, we should say, hang on a second, we need to control the problem, remove the problem, and then make it safe. Now, if that's if we're talking about decontamination, then yes, it can be expensive, but it depends which way we go with the decontamination and at what point we capture that contamination. Remembering that not everybody is affected by mould in the same way. There's now recognised to be a genetic predisposition to being affected by some moulds. Some people can live in a house and not be affected, other people move in and they're affected immediately. That's genetic predisposition or the condition of their own personal immune system because of inherent illness or their physical condition. So there's a lot of evaluation that needs to be done on where you spend your money. This isn't just saying we're going to decontaminate every house in the country. This is about saying we need to control moisture, we need to control ventilation, then we need to start looking at, well, if people are sick and they're getting sicker, and especially children, we need to target those and get these places decontaminated. And no, it doesn't need to cost a lot of money, but it needs to be done professionally. At the moment, what we're seeing is an awful lot of smoke and mirrors and contractors that are using scare tactics that are coming over from the United States, where they're saying, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, and it's going to cost you £10,000, £20,000. That's not always necessary. And yes, sometimes it is necessary that a meticulous clean-up is going to have to be undertaken in some properties, but the vast majority, no.
Have you seen some examples in your travels and in your professional life of a good practice from councils, which some, say for example, not saying that Thurrock aren't following good practice, that maybe they could look at?
I've got to be honest and say no. In fact, I would say it's worse than no. I'd say almost every time any local authority that I've seen, it's been bad practice. It's been made worse by the local authorities' environmental health officers, who have got the legislation to support them with the Housing Health and Safety Rating System, where it is stated in Parliament, an Act of Parliament, that mould can be seen as a level 1 hazard, which is in the same grouping as asbestos. But when we ask the environmental health officer to come around to a property and say, look, this person is extremely sick, they say, I can't see the mould. And when I go in and maybe I do an air sample and I test and I find tens of thousands of spores that you can't even detect outside in the normal outside air, and I say, look, this place is really contaminated, and they say, I can't see it. And I'm saying, well, I'm not surprised you can't see it, because this is submicron particulates and chemicals and VOCs that you can't see, but that are off-gassing from behind cabinets, behind wallpaper, in cavities of wall, plasterboard walls, under floors, above ceilings. You can't see it, but it's in the air and it can be measured in the air. And the issue for me is that the Under Secretary of State, and certainly the MP, Jackie Doyle from Grace Thurrock, she's taken it up, and good for her, she's taken it up with the Under Secretary of State, and he said, yes, mould is a condition 1 hazard and it should be treated as such. But the local authorities generally across the country are trying to downgrade it to say, we can't see it, we've got no money. And interestingly, the argument that I always get when I challenge an environmental health officer and I say, look, there's my report, and they say, we don't understand that. And I say, well, that's not my problem. The report is from a recognised laboratory, recognised sampling protocols, and that's it. That's the report. It's there. You know, you can refute my report, you can accept my report, but you surely, as an environmental health officer, you can't ignore my report. You've got to challenge it and say, no, we're not having it, or yes, we are, we accept it, and we will take action to resolve the issue. But at the moment, they're saying we've got no budget. Got no budget, in my mind, isn't an excuse for seeing a sick person suffering when they're pleading for what's their right under British law to say, I want to live in a healthy environment provided by a landlord. That's their right. And the environmental health officers saying, we've got no budget, we've got no training, we've got no equipment. That can't be right.
Jeff, thank you very much.